And I think the deeper truth, the one that I talk about, is transcending judgment, transcending polarity, transcending opinions, getting to that higher frequency of love. And no matter what someone else's opinion is, no matter what someone else's judgment is, can you go above that and see yourself in everyone else and have empathy for someone you might, want to not love? Can you go above that, and can you resonate at that frequency of truth?
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Patrick Cook. Welcome to Being. Being is a place where we gather to explore some of life's most difficult questions. What does it mean to lead a meaningful life? What does it mean to live a life of purpose or on purpose? How do we make sense of the world? Really, what we're asking is, what the hell is going on? My intention with this podcast is to explore what it means to be human in the modern world through the lens of creativity, consciousness, and personal development. Through authentic conversations with a wide array of guests, including artists, intellectuals, scientists, visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders, Being ventures to make collective sense of an increasingly complex world with the unifying goal of building a sustainable future for all. As humanity continues to march full steam towards extinction, we can no longer afford to simply ask, what is best for me? The question now must become, what is best for me and the whole simultaneously? And so, dear audience, I want to inspire you to take full responsibility, to find your purpose, and to engage your evolution as a conscious agent. I challenge you to live your being. If you're enjoying the content, please do subscribe to the show and get a new episode delivered directly to your device every Friday. And as always, I love hearing from you. So please do rate and review the episode on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or whichever platform you prefer. For show notes and more information, head on over to being-podcast.com. Now, on with the show. My guest today is Jessica Ann. She is the CEO and creative director of Jam, a marketing agency that develops compelling content for top-tier brands. With a master's degree in communications from Johns Hopkins University, Jessica inspires advocates for Fortune 500 companies through shared emotions and experiences, driving hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue in a way that's authentic and fun. She's also the author of the book, Humanize Your Brand: How to Create Content That Connects with Your Customers. And she hosts her own podcast called The Art of Humanity, where she explores creativity and consciousness with artists, leaders, authors, and entrepreneurs. Today, she feels called to help birth a new frequency on Earth, one that guides conscious leaders on how to use their voices to transition the globe into higher consciousness. She works with leaders who want to start and scale their podcasts into globally recognized brands through her profitable podcast program. Jessica Ann, welcome to Being. How are you?
Hey, Patrick. I'm so happy to be here. I'm doing so well. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm so excited. Jessica has been such a major influence in my life. She's been a friend, first and foremost, but also a mentor, and a big reason why I started this podcast, because I signed up for her profitable podcast program, which is so amazing. Not only do you walk your clients through like the challenging technical parts of distribution and recording and production, but also, and this is the most important part for me, was finding out what your deep why is, why you want to create a podcast, what are the emotions, what is the purpose behind it. And that process for me, going through your program, was so valuable. And I just want to say thank you.
Of course, my absolute pleasure. It's just been such an honor and a pleasure to work with you.
Awesome. Well, we can get into a bit more about podcasting later, but I want to start with something like truly fundamental here. One of the quotes on your website or your bio reads, "Today, instead of feeding the fast media approach to news and polarity, she delights in the awakenings and truth found in intuition. Truth is her medicine." Woo! I love that. Because truth cannot be created or manufactured, only explored and appreciated. So this obviously is one of the most fundamental questions, like existential questions. What is truth? So I wanted to ask you, what is truth to you? And is truth subjective, and is there like a universal truth?
Ooh, that is such an amazing question. Why don't we just go right in for
Let's
the jugular?
go right to it. Right to
awesome. I love it. I love it. Okay. This is a great question. And yeah, I think truth has a vibrational resonance and a frequency to it. And it is so pure when it's embodied. And that embodiment is a higher consciousness, and I'm not going to go too out there. I'm trying to ground the answer. So, it's
you can go as far as you want. I love it. I love the woo.
It's all really just about finding that vibrational frequency of that higher consciousness when it all comes down to unconditional love. And, throughout every situation that we're going through, especially during these polarizing times, it's so important to find that truth, find your own internal compass to navigate these turbulent times. And, when it comes to whether it is subjective, I would say that we all have our own inner compass. We all have our own personal experiences and our own history, our own, we've grown up so differently between the cultural upbringing, our families, our ancestral trauma, all that stuff. And when we kind of break through and we cut to the core of who we are, we can find that intuition and we can navigate the world through that inner truth. And it's so much deeper than an opinion. I hear all the time, oh, I'm just going to tell you how I feel because I believe in truth. And that is just an opinion. That's just a way to get your opinion in there. And that's not truth. That's the opposite of truth. That's judgment. That's shame. And I think the deeper truth, the one that I talk about, is transcending judgment, transcending polarity, transcending opinions, getting to that higher frequency of love. And no matter what someone else's opinion is, no matter what someone else's judgment is, can you go above that and see yourself in everyone else and have empathy for someone you might, want to not love? Can you go above that and can you resonate at that frequency of truth? And it's one of my favorite words. It's been one of my favorite words for a while. I just have always found a deep resonance with it because of the simplicity and because of the purity of that word.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, I found through my journey, discovering what is my truth has been challenging because it takes a deep level of trust in yourself and in your intuition, especially when we've been programmed to look externally for validation and for love and affection, all outside of ourselves. So this process of discovering your own truth is an inner journey, which I think a lot of people miss. And then, once I started journeying inwards, having the courage to trust what I found there was really, really challenging. So I want to ask you, what are some ways that people, if they're venturing to find their truth, their inner truth, and get in touch with that intuition, what are some ways that they can access it? How do you find your inner compass and trust it?
Great question. Yeah, I think it's really tricky, as you said, navigating your own truth, your own inner compass. And I think it's a process. You don't, when you're peeling an onion, you don't go straight to the core of it. You're peeling it and peeling it and peeling it to get to the core. So I can't say, oh, if you do this, you're going to get to your truth in one fell swoop. It's one of those things where you're constantly deprogramming and deconstructing everything that you grew up as a child. And you're deprogramming your education, the institution, society, and culture, everything, and stripping that away. So there's not one cookie cutter answer to get to that truth. It's a matter of going through the process and the deconditioning. And a lot of that comes from inner child work, really. So I guess the simple answer to that is inner child work has just been so key for me personally to cut to the core of who I am and reveal who I truly, who we truly are, who I truly am as a human being, and not as the human that society dictates that I should be. It's saying, no, this is who I really am. And deconstructing the conditioning of society. And, I've worked with an amazing somatic therapist to do this inner child work. And it's really humbling, and it's extremely destabilizing when you first start doing it. So I would just recommend taking it really slow and having compassion for yourself and really staying true to yourself throughout this whole process, because people that are starting this inner child work, it can be very triggering. And, you're just unleashing and unveiling a lot of the trauma that we may have grown up with, whether we think we have trauma or not. I believe that we all have some sort of trauma. Even if you think you have that perfect childhood, I think that there's always some trauma to go back on and explore as an adult human being.
Totally. And I count myself as privileged in that regard, where I had a very stable and supportive and loving upbringing. But that also doesn't mean that there wasn't programs or conditioning or traumas that I experienced that I've internalized, another thing I had to come to terms with is like, it's okay for me to explore that part of myself. And, because I wasn't traumatized as a child, as far as I knew. But I'd love to just ask you a little bit more about the inner child work. What does that mean for somebody who has no idea what we're talking about? What is inner child work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think when you so I've been working with, I'm not a therapist, so I highly recommend, going to a therapist for these deeper questions. But inner child work happens when you work with someone and you go back to who you were. Most likely there's a lot of things that happened to us before the ages of 7. So when we go back and look at kind of who we were as these children, at these really young, innocent ages, and uncover kind of like maybe something happened, or maybe it was just a way that our parents talked to us, and that's how it ingrained in our own selves, and that's how we talk to ourselves as adults. And realizing, wait, that's my mom, that's my dad talking, that's my inner voice of my parents talking to me, that's not my voice. So when you realize that a lot of the talk that we do internally comes from our parents, and then not only our parents, but the programming that we're fed as young kids, through everything as, innocent as a commercial. It's these symbolic ways that we are being fed lies and information that doesn't suit our own beauty that's inside of us. So, so the simple answer to that question is exploring who we were as children at a really young age, and then deprogramming that so that we can access the purity that's inside of our hearts without that conditioning of adults that may have been raising us.
Yeah. So when I tune into this and just what you're saying, there's a question that's coming up for me is, why should we do this work? Because say, for example, there's lots of people that are successful by conventional metrics who maybe haven't done this work, and they're living somewhat unconsciously, but they are seeing financial or material success. Like, why would I want to go do this work? Why is there a bigger purpose behind us doing this work on a species level, on a consciousness level? Why is this work important?
Yeah. So this is really a powerful question, because it comes down to embodiment. And, embodiment is this fancy word that gets thrown around. But until we actually tune into who we are in our bodies, in these human meat suits that we walk around in, we're just going to think that we have the answers to everything. And we're going to have these virtue signaling keys to success that, may look good on paper. We may have the PhD, the master's degree. We may have achieved everything that we wanted on paper, but is that truly success? Does that really make you happy? Does that light you up? So when you think about it, and it's funny because I've been talking to a lot of people that are just getting into this now during this tumultuous time. And a lot of people don't even know that this is a thing. And it's a mind-blowing conversation, when you wake up to this realization that most of the population and most of the world doesn't understand how to cut to the core of like who they are, and kind of, and when you do that, you become sovereign. You become your own best friend. You become, you exude free will in every moment of the game. And I call it a game because it's like you're Neo in the Matrix. It really becomes
Totally.
like that. And you're like, holy crap. Like you follow the white rabbit and then one thing leads to the next and you start getting these signs from the universe and you're like, wait a second, this is real. I'm literally in the Matrix. And you can
creating your own reality.
Exactly. And then you create your own reality from the emotions. And one of the keys to doing this work is tapping into those emotions. And a lot of people that are in the intellect and in their minds, when they break through and start feeling their heart, you want to be, I think Joseph Campbell has a quote saying, make your heart have the same resonance as nature. When your heartbeat is beating to the pulse of nature, you're more in tune and you're more aligned with your body. You're not in your head, you're in your body. And that is vibrational frequency that allows you to transmute negative emotions really quickly. And when you transmute, because I'm not saying you want to, spiritually bypass the negative emotions. You want to feel those emotions, transmute them, and then, be in the higher frequencies of love and joy and bliss as much as you possibly can in a pure way. Don't fake it. Don't say, oh, it's all rainbows and unicorns. You want to be actually feeling that gratitude and that joy and those higher vibe emotions, because when you exist in that high vibe state, you can do whatever the hell you want to do in this world and create your own reality.
Totally. Amazing. So before you sort of went down this path, I know you had a lot of mainstream success. You were a news producer for national media outlets, and you had a marketing company, which you still have. But was there a point in your journey where you recognized, okay, I am successful, but I'm not fulfilled? I don't feel like I'm living my life purpose. Was there sort of a catalyzing moment, a dark night of the soul, a rock bottom, something that broke you out of it and said, oh my God, I'm sleepwalking through this?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh man, I go through that every day. I mean, it's an existential crisis pretty much every day, which is amazing. It's great. Every time I feel like I have an identity or personality in place, it's like, no, who am I really? Who am I without material possessions, without all of this crap, and it's really the most humbling journey, to be on. And especially as an entrepreneur, we have the ability to kind of create our own schedules and find that internal compass in every moment of every day. So to answer your question, yes, I think it was right before I launched my business. I kind of checked all of the boxes off as all my dream jobs, the glamorous life of national TV. Now I worked in national radio. And every single job, I think I had moments of joy that turned really quickly into moments of terror. Every time I got my dream job, it was pure terror. I was like, wait, this is what I wanted? Oh my God, this is awful. Like it was great on the surface, but internally I was feeling destroyed. I was feeling like I constantly couldn't be myself. And all I wanted to be was be myself throughout all of these amazing jobs that I've had, which I'm so grateful for. I'm so profoundly grateful for those experiences. But at the same time, all I wanted to do was be me. And you have to wear a mask, you have to wear, everything that makes you not you, kind of. And that really took me away from my soul's journey. So once I left DC, I spent most of my early career in Washington, DC. And I worked in national media, and I really saw how the sausage was cooked. And I was like, and it was really, I was young and naive and innocent. And, now that I'm kind of many years removed from those experiences, I can kind of go back and reflect. And, but, the key point was launching my business after all of that experience and writing online for the world in starting back in, I think 2012. And I said, I don't care what happens out of this. I just started writing online, and I funneled it under the umbrella of creativity and consciousness and technology and humanity. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to write about these 4 topics in highly nuanced ways, sharing my own experiences and whatever happens, I don't care. I just feel like this is my calling. And I started writing online for the worlds, and things just took off from there. People found my writing and wanted to hire me as their writer. And the opportunities just exploded. So I'm so grateful that I kind of tapped into that inner intuition, because it allowed a whole world to open up where I could be a writer. And that's truly my calling. And I just feel completely grateful for all the dark moments, the dark journey of the soul that I've been on, because it always leads me to the light. And It's beautiful frequency, kind of when you transmute the darkness and you get to that beautiful light.
Yes, amazing. I just want to come back to one of the things you said about playing roles and wearing masks. And I think it was in Mark Manson's book, how he describes the social currency in the West is likability, which means I'm going to play any role or put on any mask in order to get what I want from you, be that sex or money or affection or whatever it is. I'm just going to play that role. And so our interactions are very superficial with each other. And so we go around playing different roles with everybody in our lives. It might be different with our partner or our boss or our friends or our mother. We're all playing different roles. And so when we come to this place, and usually in midlife, that's what usually cues the midlife crisis. Like, wait a minute, I'm none of these roles that I'm playing. Then who the hell am I? And so that's like, it's easier to stay playing one of those roles because they're familiar, even if they're uncomfortable, than it is to completely dismiss all of those roles and say, okay, who am I at the root? Because that means for some time you're going to feel like you have no identity, and that's terrifying. So when I heard that, it's like, oh, the void, exactly, right? The unknown is scarier than the known that is painful, right?
Yeah.
And so taking that's what the leap of faith was for me, anyways, leaping off that and saying, I don't know who I am, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going to take this leap because I can't stay here. Right. And
totally.
And that comes back to the trust I was talking about. It's like you need to take that leap and trust that you're going to be supported. Trust that the next stair or the next step is going to appear because you've taken the next one. And it does. And I can tell you from experience, it does. It always appears, right? It looks like you're about to fall flat on your face. And sometimes you do, but the next step appears and the next step appears if you have the faith and the courage to take them. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, but the steps become the step, if I can just iterate on that idea, the steps are no longer steps, it becomes a spiral. So, the former life, the game A life is steps, and you're like always taking one step after another. But then when you start down this intuitive path, it's literally like a spiral staircase going around where you see things from new perspectives as you're going up and around. And you're like, wait, I've been here before, but it's slightly different because I have that embodied experience, but I'm just going to keep going up. And it's more dynamic and it's more fluid and it's more expressive versus the stairs. You're just like going straight up. It's very mechanical and robotic, linear. Exactly.
Yeah, totally. Beautiful. Well said. We've talked about it already a little bit, but success is such a stigmatized and energetically charged word, I think, these days. Like, what does success mean? And you've just sort of described your journey, but what was your version of success when you were younger, and how has it changed now? And can you sort of differentiate between the two?
Absolutely. I love this question.
I know, right?
As a kid, my version of success was very masculine. I think that we all kind of had this idea of just plowing through it, regardless of how we feel in our bodies. We have to use our minds and force our way, fake our way. It's really, I call it the 3 F's, it's fast, forced, and fake. And awesome. and that was how I saw success, and I didn't know any better. And it's the same thing with media. It's fast media, it's forced media, and it's fake media. And now as an adult, I love slow media. Slow media makes you laugh, question, and think. It makes you question the status quo, and slowing down, nurturing your inner child, having compassion, having joy, and it's not anywhere close to the success of the previous life that I lived, or, how I was raised, or how many of us viewed success, and success is in quotes, because I don't see that as success at all today. I see that as, don't want to go back there. And I think that we are creating the new world by having conversations just like this to show and embody our experiences in our lives to say, we don't have to continue this outdated version of success. And this new version of success is just beautiful. And, it's being free and being true to our own bodies and listening to the wisdom of our body in every moment and knowing what to do instead of, waking up by an alarm and getting on calls every day. It's just, you can actually question the narrative. You can create your own narrative in every moment so that you are nurturing yourself and having a beautiful experience of life. And that's what we all want.
Yes. Oh, I just feel it in my body when I hear you speak about it. It's just like, oh, it feels good, right? In your body, and that embodiment. Oh, amazing. Another quote from your bio says, today she feels called to help birth a new frequency on Earth that guides conscious leaders on how to use their voices to transition the globe into higher consciousness. And through that, you use people to help people to scale their podcasts like you're doing with me. So I wanted to ask you, what do you mean by birthing a new frequency on Earth and transitioning into a higher consciousness? And how can podcasting be one of the vehicles that get us there?
Yeah. So, when we tap into this frequency of our voice, it activates our cells in our body. And it's a frequency that we're not familiar with as humans because we're so used to the fast, fake frequency of news and information and advertising. And instead of consuming advertising, podcasting is art. So when you consume art every day, you are bringing in this high resonance, high vibrational frequency where we're not just having conversations on the surface. Yeah, it looks like we're having a conversation, and that's fine. If, totally cool. But on the deeper cellular level, we're actually imbuing ourselves with good, we're nurturing ourselves, and we are changing our bodies in every moment in these conversations because they're listening. Our bodies are listening to this voice activation that's coming through our throat chakra, which is so powerful. And it's tapping into that wisdom that's here in every moment. We just are learning how to access it in new and more vibrant ways. And podcasting is the true vehicle for expression of truth and higher love and universal frequency and the universal sound of Om. We go through yoga and we Om all the time at the end of practice or at the beginning of our practice. And it's this universal frequency of the universe. And it's just a beautiful analogy and symbolism for kind of what podcasting feels and how podcasting feels in my body for myself and for many of my clients, because they are able to transmute and actually embody their own inner wisdom through these conversations. And when they do that, they're actually breaking through to the other side of their narrative. And they're saying, you know what, I'm not going to consume the BS stuff that we are conditioned to consume. I'm going to create my own reality. I'm going to have conversations that are in higher resonance for me today and create my future. And that's where true sovereignty lies.
Oof, I'm feeling that deeply. I resonate deeply with that. It's awesome. And I think it's a beautiful way of maximizing the technology available in a positive way that uplifts the frequency of the planet, rather than say something like a social media, which, gets you limbically hijacked and into, emotional state, which is not in your highest resonance. It's actually moving you to your fear state, your lowest resonance. So that was one of the reasons why I was attracted to podcasting, is like I can actually use my voice and the technology available to broadcast a message in a frequency that is of the highest magnitude, the highest frequency, and which is, enabling me to more positively impact the world in a great way, which is amazing. And you're right. It's
Absolutely.
Like having these conversations activates ourselves and each other on a cellular level. We're almost, we're speaking with vocabulary, but we're exchanging energy and frequency and codes between each other. And so I was even a little bit nervous before I got on this. And this comes back to the trust element. But I took the leap and just trusted that I would be in flow and, the wisdom would channel through me. And that's exactly what happens when you trust yourself enough. So thank you for nurturing me and holding me accountable and allowing me to develop this part of myself, because it's been so rewarding, and I'm only 12 episodes in, so who knows what'll happen next.
I love it.
So awesome.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it comes down to. Our bodies are the technology. And when we use our bodies as the technology and we have these conversations, the podcasting is the tool and the channel, but our bodies are the actual, obviously podcasting is the tech too, but the wisdom of our body is the technology today. And I always go back to that.
Totally. So you are also an author. You wrote a book called Humanize Your Brand, How to Create Content That Connects with Your Customers, which amazing. And there's a great review on Amazon from Jeff Brown, who I'm a big fan of, another author. And he says, this book reflects the next paradigm, one where we make a better living when we can actually take off our masks and get real with our customers. Finally, a book that invites us to make no distinction between our humanness and our marketing strategy. And that just resonated so deeply for me, because this is the new paradigm of marketing. But what would you say to somebody who doesn't know what that means, or doesn't know how to take that step into owning their authenticity in their marketing, and they're sort of stuck in the old paradigm?
Yeah, I love Jeff Brown and his work. It's been really instrumental for my personal growth, and he does a lot of the inner child work as well. So it's been helpful as well. I think when it comes down to what you were talking about earlier about the compartmentalization, we are one way at work, we are another way at home. And when you can be the same person and not wear that mask with your clients, with your dog, you want to feel the same way with your dog and with when you're out on a hike, as you do with your clients. There shouldn't be any disconnection from that part of your soul. And when I consider it, so we're all going through life, right? And there's this vertical, connection to source, right? And we can tap into that, whether that's before we start our workday and we're in meditation, or whenever we decide to meditate and feel that frequency of love and tap into the God, whatever you want to call it, the universe or God, spirit, source. And then there's the horizontal, and that's, it's the interactions with each other. It's the day-to-day grind. It's the grocery shopping. It's, the mundane daily tasks of life. So it's a matter of kind of feeling that connection, that vertical higher source connection, and then bringing it into every relationship that we have in the horizontal world. And when we do that, we can feel that unity and harmony with ourselves, and that same frequency that we feel with, with that higher power, we can feel with our clients. We can feel with our friends. We can feel with our family. It doesn't have to be separate. And I think, that's a really big distinction, and it's really key to tapping into our own sovereignty and our inner power and truth.
And I think it's what just came up for me is it also, you're not dumbing down your approach to reach an audience in a certain way, the old paradigm way. You are actually speaking a higher truth at a higher frequency that invites the client or whoever, the customer, to rise to that, to summon that frequency in themselves. So actually, by doing authentic marketing, you're influencing the planet and the consciousness by not dumbing it down, not watering it down, by really, living in that authentic truth and inviting your customer, or your clients, or your audience to rise to that level as well. So it's just beautiful, and that's why it feels so good when you do it. And this is something, again, that for me has been challenging, because it does require that level of trust. When I first got into sort of coaching and entrepreneurship, it's like, okay, there's all these frameworks and marketing and rules, and this is how you do sales and blah, blah, blah. And those are, yes, the masculine energy, that's important. But if you're not coming from an embodied, aligned space first, then none of those frameworks or strategies are going to matter. You're just going to be going through the motions and get, lukewarm results, which I did for a long time. So it's been really part of my journey to fully come into alignment first and operate from that space. Coming back to the morning practices, continuing to tune into that energy every morning, setting yourself up for success, and then creating from that space rather than asking, what am I creating? It's like, where am I creating from? is more fundamental, right? And so
totally.
that's been and that's just saying that out loud feels so good. It's like, yes, I'm creating from that depth of alignment in my heart center, right? Which then it radiates out and naturally magnetizes your clients to you, or your audience, or whoever it might be. So it's somewhat counterintuitive to the old paradigm, but once you tune into it and you feel what it feels like, it's like, oh yes, this is it.
Totally.
Right?
Absolutely. And just trusting it. Absolutely. Just letting go and surrendering to it. And you might not even know what it looks like today.
Yeah.
But if you continue to like build off that momentum, you'll find that frequency. You'll find whatever's next. Like for years, I remember talking about embodied marketing. I was like, oh, it's embodied marketing. And I had no clue what it was. No clue. And I just kept referring to it as embodied marketing. And then one day I woke up and I was like, wait a second. Embodied leaders actually exude their essence when they podcast. You can't fake it. You actually have to embody your marketing. That's not something that you can pay. No amount of advertising dollars will allow you to embody your message. So when I brought in the podcasting component, I was like, this is embodied marketing. And then it all clicked into place. But you don't know how many months and agonizing days went by where I was like, what is embodied marketing before I birthed this program?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I think that will resonate for a lot of people, is 'cause we can understand things intellectually, but it's really until we embody them, that we truly understand it. And that can come back to what we were talking about. Truth is like, okay, I kind of understand what truth is, but my truth, I'm a little unclear. But once you feel it, it's undeniable what your truth is and what universal truth is, because it's a feeling rather than words or intellectualism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, are you feeling lost, frustrated, angry about the state of the world, but unsure what to do about it? I get it. The world is a pretty messed up place right now. Yet, in these interesting times of shattered realities, many people are using alcohol to escape and numb their feelings of anxiety, dread, and uncertainty. I know, I did it for years. This is why I've made it my mission to support brave souls in mastering their inner world and finding a deeper sense of purpose. To that end, I created Reset 2020. Reset is a personal transformation mastermind group with the intention of resetting your relationship with alcohol and becoming the best version of yourself in an empowering, supportive online community. To check out more about Reset 2020 and to watch my masterclass video, head on over to go.patrickcooklife.com. Remember, Cook is spelled with an E, C-O-O-K-E. So it's go.patrickcooklife.com. All right, now back to the show. So you mentioned earlier Game A, and I think this would be worth unpacking, because there's sort of a theory on Game A and Game B, and how that relates to where we are in the world right now. For somebody who's never heard of these terms or knows about the theory, can you sort of unpack that for us?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I love talking about this because
Me too.
I interviewed Jim Rett on my podcast, and the concept comes from someone named Jordan Hall. So just to give them credit and it's not really about that, because it's all about coming together as a collective and talking about this stuff. But I first got introduced to it when I was listening to a podcast with Jim Rett on it and reading all about this new world. And it was so helpful for me because I'm a part of all these different communities, spiritual communities that are really like out there, and then also really the nerdy ones. And it was like, how do you kind of bridge that gap? And I like to kind of intellectualize and analyze things first. So when you bring the equation of Game A into the mix, it's this former paradigm that we're all really moving away from, So it's like when we actually cut back and realize who we are, then we can lean more into Game B. And when we lean more into Game B is all about creativity and consciousness and sustainability and the future of life on Earth. And it's, going back to the earlier questions about success, it's tapping into how we all see success now that we are done with the old paradigm. The new paradigm is Game B. The new paradigm is coming together collectively and saying, hey, what are you good at? And saying like, oh, okay, like using our strengths and working and building from a place of strength and wisdom and embodiment, instead of going back to the old way and saying like, I'm really like, there's a lot of uncertainty and insecurity and trying to prove yourself in game A versus game B is no proving and more embodying.
Yeah. The way I sort of understand game A is, and just to add on to what you're saying, is it's kind of with the status quo, or the way we've been operating since, the dawn of civilization, the last 10,000, 100,000 years. And It's basically, it's got a foundation of rivalry where we are in competition with each other for scarce resources. And so that's going to show up as, win-lose games where if I don't have the resources, then you do, and vice versa. So we're always competing for scarce resources.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is, once we become a global system, we can no longer, go to war over scarce resources, because now we have the technology just to destroy each other. Where we'll just level the playing field for everybody, and then we can no longer play this game. And so it's coming to a head where, okay, this game has worked to a certain extent for the last, 10,000 years or something, but we've come to this place of exponential technology where we're in a global community where we cannot continue to extract resource from the earth and turn it into trash at the level we're doing with the population control or explosion that we're doing. It's an unsustainable path that ends in termination. And so that's kind of what game A is. So game B just was born of, okay, well, what is an alternative? What could possibly be an alternative to this path towards extinction, right? And so overcoming rivalry, overcoming competition, overcoming scarcity. And then one of the other things that I remember is broadcast modality. So before, you're getting all your information from a king or a queen or a network, where it's one entity disseminating information to the masses. Now with the internet, it's more of a decentralized network, but it's in its infancy. So we're kind of, we're using it poorly, and it's causing a lot of destruction. You can see in the social media landscape, it's just causing more polarity. But what if we could come to a place where we're using decentralized intelligence in a more cohesive way? And I think this is a big part of game B. And the only way that we can show up in community or in collective intelligence is to do this inner child work that we were talking about earlier, is to really heal yourself on an individual level first. And so when we do get into conversations like this and we're exchanging frequency and codes, then we're both at our highest level. It's not one of us getting triggered down into fear and then dropping the other person down into fear, right?
Totally.
And so, and if we can begin to do this at scale, I think that's where the game B model will really be based. It's like, okay, we can have a decentralized collective intelligence that's based on truth and cooperation, not on scarcity and competition. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love this concept, and it's so key to our future, because, and people that are academics and researchers have actually found out and discovered that the future to our humanity is in doing the inner work, and it's the inner work first, and then comes the external work, because until you actually heal yourself, you can't heal the world. And until you actually heal yourself, you're going to point the finger at everyone else except yourself and say, if you do this, if you wear a mask, if you do this, the world will be better. And that's not a political comment. It's just saying that, putting the focus on everyone externally is going to be the way that you see the world will get better. But no, we actually have to point the finger at ourselves and direct that energy, that negative, a lot of people may have a lot of judgment, and shame, but directing that inward, and not through self-hate. It's done through self-love. And then, giving ourselves compassion when we're doing this work, because then when we turn and reflect and contemplate all of these big, huge planetary problems on ourselves, we actually realize that we can make more of a difference in this world than pointing the finger or blaming or talking about solutions, and that's, I hate that word, but it's like everyone says solution to this. And it's like, no, inner child is the solution. Like, just go inward and don't speak and just contemplate. And I think we'll all come out on the other side of this with a different perspective.
Yes. Beautiful. I love that. And, it's such important work, and it's somewhat counterintuitive, because a lot of us want to do something about what's going on in the world. So we're looking outside of ourselves. Like, I want to come up with solutions, But I think what's most important is to do the inner work first, and it's somewhat counterintuitive, and it takes courage to actually do it. So I applaud you and everybody out there that's doing the work. That's really what's needed in the world right now. Awesome. So I want to shift gears a little bit and just talk about creativity, because it's something that's like at the heart of my life. I've been a musician my whole life, and music is such a big part of my life, creativity in all ways. But I want to ask you about, what is your relationship with your own creativity? How has it changed over time? And where does creativity come from? Is it an internal thing, or is it external? Is it a combination of both?
Oh, I love this. Creativity. Oh, I love this topic. Creativity comes from source. I believe it comes from a higher power. Anything that I have created in this world, I don't feel like actually comes from me, like a personality. I feel like it's really comes from a download, like a channel. I kind of become a channel, and it's definitely changed over time. And I think it comes down to trusting yourself and knowing kind of what is your true soul and what is your ego, what is the personality. And
how do you tell the difference?
Oh, it can be very challenging at first. For sure. Especially, yeah. I think, does it feel resonant? Does it feel good? Are you going to, I think a lot of marketing today is self-congratulatory, and we have to know when we are just patting ourselves on the back and when we are really vibrating at that higher frequency and that higher wisdom. And a lot of the times, we are programmed to create things that will get more likes. And when we step away from whether anyone will like it, it doesn't have to be like one person, could like it, or 0 people could like it. Do you like it? Do you feel like you're putting your soul out in the world? And do you feel that you're going to actually, contribute to your own personal marketing? It's almost like internal marketing, internal GPS marketing, because you are so in tune with who you are as a human versus allowing the program of society to make you want to post something for the likes. And it's really tricky to navigate that because, we're on social media often and we're constantly posting things, and you want people to like us. It's a human trait to want people to like us. So when we kind of remove that facet from the game and focus on what are we creating that nurtures our growth and our transformation and our evolution, that's how I like to know the difference or discern the difference between ego and soul. And that's how we can tap into creativity.
Love it. Yeah. So one of the things that sort of helped me is being able to discern what is my mind, what is my ego, and what are my thoughts, just by becoming the observer of them. And this is why it's so important to cultivate some self-awareness practice, be it meditation or breath work or even yoga, to recognize and be able to watch our minds. Because, typically in the West, we're just so in this beta frequency of productivity, logic, intellectualism, caffeinated, highly in tune. And that's rewarded in the system, obviously. But when we go home at night, we don't know how to turn it off. And it's just like, this noise. So we go out and distract ourselves. For me, it was alcohol was my number one. But if we can learn how to sit still long enough to be able to remove ourselves and create space between the noise, the voice that's operating in our head, and our truest self, that's when we can really discern between the ego and the soul, right? And the more you sort of cultivate that on a daily basis with practice, then you can begin to watch the ego and say, oh, there it is, it's doing this again, there's the voice again, but really this is my soul over here that is in control. And again, it comes back to what I was saying about, where are you creating from? Are you creating from that ego, the scarcity, the fear, the anxiety, or are you creating from that knowingness, that deep trust of the soul intuition, and having the self-awareness to discern between the two, which is fascinating. I just want to ask you again about, so you feel like creativity comes directly from source and you're just a channel? Because this is something that's fascinating. I don't know the answer to, but in my experience, it's a bit of both. So yes, you are connecting to something higher than yourself. Maybe it's the quantum field, maybe it's collective intelligence, maybe it's God, whatever you want to call it. and you are being a channel for that voice that wants to express. And so you are channeling that energy, but you're also using your unique lens, your unique gifts as the channel for that creativity to flow through. And so, and there's an interesting anecdote where Tom Waits, I think, is driving down the road, and it's like he gets this hit of inspiration. He's like, "Dude, God, can't you see I'm driving? Like I can't write this down right now. It's like go bother Leonard Cohen or something.
Yeah.
But it's like
Totally.
but being available, through what I was talking about a minute ago, of just that stillness and self-awareness, being available for that hit of inspiration, and being open to it coming, and then being willing to be the vehicle to allow it to birth into this reality, I think is really what creativity is, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's key that we remember that we do have these human bodies on this plane because it's easy to forget. It's easy to say, oh, it's just source and we're all just these, floating around. And that's my work today and every day, is to ground that into practicality and to ground that into how do we actually become these vehicles to express. And I love that part of what you just said, because it's really about allowing that to flow through you, but then actually, like, once it's like in us, like, how do we actually communicate that out into the world, which is key. And that comes through in so many different ways for me personally. And depending on the movement has been a huge influence in my life over the years. So I notice how different forms of movement allow me to tap into different forms of creativity. So when I run, I can access a meditative state and I'm physically moving my body, but I don't feel my body. And then after I'm done with my run, I can just create amazing, like, I just feel like I'm in a better place to create amazing art. And the same thing goes for yoga. It's a different form of movement, but when I do yoga, I leave, my yoga mat and I step off the mat and I'm a different human. And, I can channel that creativity a lot different than a run. So movement has been key to my creativity, and different types of movement has influenced my creativity over the years as well. And knowing what type of movement and what type of exercise is needed on any given day is a part of grounding and a part of accessing creativity and our inner truth to communicate that to the world.
Yes. And I think it's important to note that the creativity that we're talking about isn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to be an artist to be creative. You don't have to be a painter, a musician, or a writer to be creative. In fact, all of us are creating all the time, whether we know it or not. We're creating our circumstances through our thoughts, through our emotions, through our actions, right? And so when you are more embodied, you're in a better position to create what you actually want. That's the best for you and the world at the same time. And so, a lot of it is about clearing out the noise in our creative channel. And that can be, inner thoughts. It can be the media we're digesting. It can be the food and the drink we're ingesting. All these things contribute to blocking the creative channel. So the more we can remove those things and enter that stillness, enter that clarity, and allow that creativity to flow through us, the more it'll be in alignment with our soul, giving us what we actually want in the world and benefiting everybody else at the same time, right? Which is why this work for me is so powerful. It's like,
fuck yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Right? I can have everything I want and be doing the best for the planet at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the beautiful part about being an artist, or whether you're an artist or not, it's showing people that we all have this power in ourselves to communicate love out into the world in every moment.
Totally. Awesome. Well, Jessica, this is just so amazing. We could sit here rapping all day long, and I'll definitely have to have you back on the show, but I just want to be cognizant of your time. So I'm going to end with one last question that I love asking people. And it's, if you were to take all of your experiences, all the knowledge and wisdom gained, and distill it down into one message, what would it be?
Oh, wow. I'm going to have to go with listen, explore, evolve. That has been my, that's been my tagline for my podcast for a while. And I still believe that when we listen to these types of conversations like we're having, or when we listen to, like music that we love, your music or any music that lights us up, we can explore our own intuition, and then that allows us to evolve not just our own personal selves, but our humanity collectively.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and spending this time with us today. Do you want to tell everybody where they can get in touch with you, where they can find you for the Profitable Podcast program and your marketing agency?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you can find my podcast at artofhumanity.io, and you can find me on all the socials at Being is Human.
Awesome. Fantastic. I'll put all that in the show notes. Anything to add before we wrap up?
No, I mean, you can get my book on Amazon and Audible as well, Humanize Your Brand. So feel free to check that out.
Yes. Fantastic. Jessica Ann, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you, Patrick. Such a pleasure.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And if you enjoyed the show, please do subscribe, rate, and review. For more information and show notes, head on over to being-podcast.com. We'll see you next time. And remember, live your being.